Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. This week, we take a trip down memory lane, back to the good old days when I used to party in Picasso's, the teen club in Beaufort, South Carolina. And this week's guest, his song would always get everybody on the dance floor, along with the SoSo Deaf Bass All-Stars. We got Lathun Grady on hand this
What
week.
up?
How you doing, brother?
I'm blessed, man. I can't complain. I'm chilling.
No doubt. The Freak It Man himself is in the building.
Every time I hear that, it's kind of a joke now, because when we first did the record, myself and Lil Jon, he started making jokes calling me the Freak It Man. So we just it's kind of like an inside joke now. I kind of put it on my email. It's just a little inside joke thing we do now.
That's what I noticed when we were communicating on the back channels. I was like, wow, his email address is the Freak It Man himself. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to bring that up in the interview.
Dude, I used to, when he first said it, I was mad, man. I was like, man, I ain't no damn Freak It Man. It just sounded, real nasty to me, like, I don't know, like some nasty stuff, but I was like, all right, whatever, dog. Then we just made a joke out of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we definitely gonna discuss Freak It in depth, later on in the interview. But let's start out with your childhood, growing up in Detroit. How did you start singing? Did you start out in a choir or sing in school? Like how did you hone those skills?
So I've done a few of all of those things, but specifically I started in a family group with two of my brothers and some of the neighborhood kids. Mm-hmm. They started a little group trying to do something kind of like a New Edition type of thing, you know what I mean? We all admired New Edition, the Jacksons, and we kind of started a little group like that in our neighborhood, just kind of all hanging together and having fun and performing around our neighborhood, that kind of thing.
Okay. So you mentioned New Edition and the Jackson 5. Were they your main inspirations, or like who else did you gravitate towards?
So when I first initially started out, I would say that my first influences were like family members. Mm-hmm. My mother, my older brother, those are my main influences. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Those are my main influences. But I guess we all kind of modeled ourselves after the Jacksons. New Edition, a lot of the groups from, that were like harmony singing groups that did kind of like performances with steps and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So because of Detroit's rich musical history, was it easy to capture the attention of record labels? Were they always like fishing around the scene looking to discover local talent?
Actually, man, I'll tell you, like, around Detroit, it's kind of odd, man. Detroit has a lot of talent, but the music business was no longer here, the actual business of it. Mm-hmm. So in order to really get involved in the game, like real strong, you had to really leave Detroit and go elsewhere. And so as I started to grow and learn how to write music and get a little older and, kind of hone my skills and my talents, I started to branch out and travel into other cities like Atlanta, New York, LA. By that time, I had started producing and writing songs for people. And so it was sort of easy to do, to kind of like use that as a bridge to kind of get me to these other places.
Mm-hmm. So early on in your career, you wrote for Immature. Just talk about that
Yeah.
experience and then some of the other early songwriting and production credits you had.
So the thing with Immature was probably my first professional experience, like with a group that actually was signed to a record deal and needed material.
Hmm.
And so I kind of came across this guy. He had a whole lot of connections, but he didn't have any talent for music. And so when I met him, he was like, "Listen, man, I know a lot of people, and I want to connect you with some people in the music business because you got a lot of talent." And so he was like, "I know this guy out in LA by the name of Chris Stokes, and he's got this group called Immature, and he's looking for some music." And so he was like, "I want to present some music to them on your behalf." And so I wrote a few songs. They presented the songs to Immature. Immature loved the songs. They flew us out. I produced the records on the group. And that was like the first album. And then they loved the material that I wrote for them the first album. So by the time they got to the second album, they wanted to do some more songs, and I wrote more.
Okay. So from what I noticed on Wikipedia, you wrote "Swedish Love" on their second album, "Playtime
Uh,
Is Over," which that album featured the classics like "I Will Never Lie" and "Constantly." Um,
yeah.
so like just give us a little insight into the music industry as far as like did a lot of your songwriting get credited or are there some
Now here's the crazy thing, and this is the part that I edited out just now when we were talking.
uh-huh.
But the guy that hooked me up with them actually wrote his name on those songs as if he were a co-producer and a co-writer, but he didn't write or produce anything. And I kind of ran into a lot of that in the beginning when I really was kind of green and didn't understand the business as well as I should have. I was kind of young, didn't really know anything about the business side of music. I just was a songwriter and I had some talents. And it's real crazy, man, because like I kind of got into the music business real deep and heavy to try to get away from the street side of life.
Right.
Cause I was raised in a family, man. It was kind of crazy, you know what I mean? Like my family was raised, we were kind of like in the church, but then we kind of had a foot in the streets too.
Mhm.
So it was a little crazy, man, to have that dichotomy. You know what I'm saying? Like on one hand, Sunday we're praising God, and then when we get back home, it was like drug dealing. You know what I'm saying? So it was a little crazy. And so when I started to get older, I really wanted to get away from that because I started to see so much of the dark side of things from that world. And I was like, how can I get away from this? And then when I got into the music business, it was still kind of the same stuff.
Right.
Only music was attached to it, but you still running, I still was running into gangsters and still running into, unsavory characters and people that are try to take. And so it was a little crazy, you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah,
But
and
you
that
live and you learn.
yeah. So was he like a um quasi manager or like how could he legally
I mean,
sign
honestly, the guy, man, he pretty much stole from me,
uh-huh.
is what he did. You know what I mean? Under the guise of friendship. You feel what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
me and this guy, we kind of came from the same area, knew each other, knew a lot of the same people. And so we kind of did things based upon just knowing each other and sort of a handshake. And so, nowadays we're kind of in the information era where you can find out a lot about business and a lot just by Googling and researching and finding out things. Back then, it was a different time. So you learn things the hard way by people stealing from you and you getting got. You get got enough, you start to learn those valuable lessons the hard way. And so for me, that's kind of how it happened. It's different now. I really appreciate the fact that you have a lot of major artists out there now that are exposing a lot of this kind of stuff and really kind of schooling the younger people nowadays and letting them know what to watch out for, how to protect yourself, how to protect your interests. You know, you got guys like Jay-Z, um, guys like JD, of course, you know, who has SoSo Def. You know, they get out there and they tell people a lot about the inner workings of the business and how it works and how you can, you know, kind of protect yourself.
Right. So, speaking of Jermaine Dupri, obviously he's the CEO and founder of SoSo Def Records.
Yeah.
How did you get on his radar?
So let's see. That's kind of a long story, sort of, but I was working for Raphael Sadiq, and I was out in Sacramento. Raphael had a house out in Sacramento and then another house out in LA. And so I was working for him, and he was kind of based in Sacramento at the time. And so uh, I was dating this chick that knew Raphael Sadiq, and she was like, "Yo, I got this connect with Raphael, but we really don't have no material." So she had this group. I wrote some material for the group, and we sent it to Raphael. Raphael loved the stuff, and he was like, "Yo, if y'all can get out here, we can work." At the time, none of us really, you know, was doing a whole lot. Ain't nobody really had no money. And so they were like, you know, they was like, "Man, how can we get out to LA or how can we get out to Sacramento?" And so I was like, damn, you know, maybe I can put up the money because I had a little bit of money. I was like, maybe I'll put up the money and we can catch the Greyhound out there. It was a 3-day trip, dog,
Wow.
like on the Greyhound. But we was all so, you know, so excited and like hungry to get into the game. We took that 3-day trip, man. That was the worst 3-day bus ride that I ever had in my life. I vowed never to take another bus ride like that. But anyway, we got out there. When I got out there, this guy I knew from Detroit was like, "Yo, man, I'm out in Atlanta and I got to connect with this guy named Lil Jon." So I'm talking about Lil Jon from Lil Jon and the East Side Boys.
Right.
At the time, Lil Jon was the A&R over at SoSo Def. And so I didn't know who Lil Jon was at the time, you know, because Lil Jon had a lot of hit records out in Atlanta, and that was kind of regional. You feel what I'm
Right.
saying? So it wasn't really out in Detroit where I was living at the time, but it was real big out in the South. And so I hooked up with Lil Jon through this guy that I'm talking about. Lil Jon was like, "I'm gonna send you the beats. I need a joint that's like, you know," he wanted something that was like My Pony over this track that he had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he sent me the track. I listened to everything that he was looking for, and I wrote to the song, right? I wrote something to it that was kind of dope, sent it to him. He was like, "Oh man, I love it, but I want it dirtier than that." He was
Right.
like, "We got to make this real street." Because at the time I was extra R&B, you know what I mean? And so it was all love songs and stuff like that. And so he sent it back. I tweaked it a little bit and sent it back, and he went crazy. He was like, "Yo, this is the joint," you know what I mean? And so I was out in Sacramento by this time, you know what I'm saying? So I'm living out there working on the album for the girls that I was talking about. And so I'm working with Raphael. He like, "Yo, man, when you get a break from this Raphael stuff, I'm gonna fly you out to Atlanta, and I want you to, you know, come out here and cut the record." So I
Mm-hmm.
flew out there, cut the record. Once I did the record, he introduced me to JD. And so I'll never forget this because I went up to SoSo Def. I was excited as hell, man. Like this is the first time that I was getting to meet, you know, JD and kind of go up to SoSo Def. And SoSo Def was on fire at the time. I mean, they had a bunch of hit records, bunch of hit artists. You know, JD had just did, I believe, Usher at the time, so he was on fire. And we went into like the main room that they listened to everything in, and so they started playing "Freak It." And he walked in the room. He was like, "Oh man, this is it, bro. I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it." And so he was like, man, we got to get this mixed, you know what I'm saying? And we're gonna get it done, you know what I mean? And so that was it. I flew out there, cut the record, man. We mixed it. Next thing I know, it was on the radio, like burning it up. It was on the radio playing like every other minute, man. I mean, when I flew back out there the next time when I came back from Sacramento, the record was playing so much that on the ride from the airport, I heard it a couple of times. So it was going crazy. I mean, all over the South. I mean, they was playing it in heavy rotation.
So, did you have a familiarity with Atlanta bass music before Lil Jon sent you the tracks?
I had just a little knowledge, you know what I'm saying? But at the time, you got to remember, man, Atlanta was still on the come up. You know what I mean? It wasn't really the Atlanta that we know of today, where you got like, you know, countless artists that have blown up that came out of Atlanta. It was hot out there, but it wasn't what it is now.
Right.
And so I knew a little bit, but not too much. I wasn't even really into bass. I was into R&B. The whole thing is the formula that Lil Jon wanted was he wanted to mesh bass music with R&B. And so that was kind of the first time that really happened. Right around that time, also that record with KP and Envy, I believe,
Shorty
had
Swing My
just
Way?
dropped. Yep, that record had just dropped too, which was kind of the same formula. Then later on, you got records like Yeah from Usher. That was kind of the same formula, bass music with R&B.
Right.
So that joint, you know, was kind of one of the first ones like that.
Yeah, so like Freak It, like you said, dominated the radio, but it also, I mean, it was major in skating rinks and strip clubs and pool parties and cookouts. See, I'm from Beaufort, South Carolina, which is close to Savannah. So like we would have our cookouts and our like seafood boils, and we'd be playing bass music. And we'd be line dancing, and I mean, it just came with the territory. Like Freak It. Last week, I had one of my friends from high school in town visiting, and with a friend of his, and we were driving, and I was playing all of the Atlanta bass music. Played your song, and we was like partying in the car, you know. So I mean, it has that longevity. 25 years later.
It's crazy because it is still getting a lot of airplay, and it's become a classic record. You know what I mean? Like, it's at the point now, man, where it's a staple. I mean, like as recent as last year, like people send me on my online, you know, presence, people send me stuff all the time showing me memes and people partying to the record, people in clubs, people at cookouts, just like what you're talking about. And the other day they sent me a video of P. Diddy dancing to Freak It. And I was just like, I can't believe this. You know, I couldn't believe that it got as far as to him.
Right.
And he knew the record like that. But I've seen also Cardi B, her and Offset were on like a live the other day, like Instagram live, and this was maybe last year or so, but it was playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like tripping, man. Another one, Shaq had a whole little skit that he did off of Freak It. So it's become like a classic record. I mean, I really couldn't ask for a bigger blessing when it comes to that record, man. It just became like an anthem, so to speak. I've seen a lot of celebrities that love the record, a lot of, you know, your everyday people, man, that just love the record and support it and have supported it for years. I'm still performing the record around the country. I just went out to Miami not too long ago and performed it. I went to Tennessee before that, Alabama. So people are still loving this record, man.
Yeah, I mean, I know down south it's a staple, and like just the SoSo Def bass all stars in general, like with Ghost Town DJs, My Boo and Raheem
Yeah.
and Kilo and DJ Taz and KP and Envy. Like I said, it was just a staple in the clubs down south. Was it as big like in the north, in the west, and like in Detroit as well?
Yes, it is. I can't go out to a club here without hearing my record all the time. There's a hustle in Detroit called the Bad Girl Hustle.
Hmm.
And so when they play that, the floor just fills up with women. They just doing that Bad Girl Hustle. It's crazy. So it's all over Chicago, Detroit, all over this whole area, man. I honestly think it's a nationwide record. It started out as just the South, you know what I'm saying? But man, it's real crazy because Freak It, it's taken off so much, kind of based upon social media and like word of mouth. You know what I mean? People traveling and you know, maybe if you love the record and you think it's hot and you from North Carolina and you're hanging out in New York, you're like, yo, man, it's this jam right here is, whatever. And you play it and they're like, what is this? Okay. And so it's really branched all around the country, you know what I mean? So it's nationwide now, man. Like even here in Detroit, they play it in the clubs here all the time. And the ladies here got this dance off of it. It's kind of a hustle. It's called a Bad Girl Hustle. As soon as that record comes on, man, they just pack the floor. And I mean, they're just going crazy with it. You know what I'm saying? So it's been a huge blessing, man. I mean, this record has lasted so long. I'm still traveling around and performing the record all over the country. You know what I mean? So I just recently went to a few different places, man, and performed the record, man, and it's still getting a great response.
Right. So you followed up Freak It with Give Me What I Want with Katrina on SoSo Def Bass
Yeah,
All Stars Volume 3. Um,
yeah.
so was Lil Jon's, I guess, interest in bass music sort of swaying towards the crunk scene and working more with the East Side Boys, or like what happened to bass music in Atlanta?
So bass evolved into crunk.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Especially for Lil Jon. I mean, Lil Jon is crunk. And so he went from the bass thing and kind of evolved it into his own thing, which was called crunk music. So once Lil Jon got into the crunk, by that time I was signed to Motown, and I was doing just straight R&B, borderline neo soul. And so that's my roots. You know what I'm saying? Like I've always written R&B music, and I do hip hop too, but R&B is like my forte. You know what I mean? I've always been a great slow song writer, but I'm known for Freak It, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah. Well, did you find it difficult,
Yeah.
like shedding that Freak It label when you decided to do conventional R&B?
So it did confuse some of my fans. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the fans that knew me from bass, there's like, where's the bass music? You know what I'm saying? And then some of the people that knew me from R&B, they was like, what is this bass music you're doing? So I would say, as an artist, man, I reserve the right to express myself in many different genres of music. You know what I mean? That's the kind of artist that I am. I do a little bit of everything, man. I mean, I play instruments, I sing, I'm a songwriter. So I've always done a variety of types of music. So I'm never going to stop doing that. Even today, I'm still doing hip hop music. I'm still doing R&B music. You know what I mean? So it's just a different view of what I do. That's all.
Uh-huh. So,
Same guy, just expressing it a different way.
right. So was there any discussions on dropping a solo album for SoSo Def?
Yes, I actually recorded a whole album for SoSo Def, man. And at the time, it was just timing. If you like when we were talking about the music business gets crazy, man. Like behind the scenes, things can sometimes throw off what you're trying to get done. And so in the case of me doing that album as SoSo Def, I had the whole album done. I think if that, I'd probably would have blew up so crazy, because the music on it. I mean, did I lose you?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Go ahead.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. So the album, man, that I recorded, I mean, for me was just, I feel like it was some of my best work. And the album got shelved because SoSo Def lost their distribution at the time when I was signed over there. So they really only got to keep, I think it was 3 artists that were on their roster. And so he must have had some kind of clause in their contracts that enabled him to be able to keep those artists. But like myself and, man, countless other artists, sorry about the lighting, countless other artists, man, were dropped at the time from the label because of that, because they lost their distribution.
Okay. So I guess that kind of explains certain things with the bass all stars, because it seemed to me like the music itself was marketed, but the artist we never really knew much about you guys.
Yeah,
Did you
it was
sort
a
of feel the same way?
compilation. It was a compilation album, so it was meant to be like that. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like kind of like maybe what DJ Khaled does, where he brings in a lot of different artists and he makes an album and he produces it. You know what I'm saying? So that was a compilation record with many different artists from, different places. And so that's just how it was designed to be.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you did mention that you signed to your hometown label, Motown Records.
Uh-huh.
We all know the legacy and all of the musical titans that recorded for that label. You dropped the solo project
Yeah.
Fortunate. Just
Yeah.
speak on signing to the hometown label with such a crazy track record.
So I mean, that was like a dream come true, because my mother, when she was a young woman, and she auditioned for Motown and didn't get the deal. So I felt like it was vindication from my mother when I was able to go in there and and get signed and do an album over there. So I was real proud of that situation.
Yeah. And like I said, the album was titled
And
Fortunate.
Motown, yeah, Motown has a huge legacy. Period. You know what
Uh-huh.
I'm saying? So you're talking about from back with Marvin Gaye, artists like the Supremes, and the list goes on and on. Stevie Wonder, the Temptations. I mean, to be kind of amongst those artists because we were all on that label, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? I appreciate that.
So when you recorded the Fortunate album for Motown, you had a guest spot from India Ari. Just talk about that
Yeah,
collaboration.
man, that was like a dream come true, to be real with you. She's extremely talented. I loved her vocals. I mean, she added some backgrounds on the song we were working on. It just sounded like angels. I mean, it was beautiful, man. She's a nice lady too. I mean, just cool to hang out with. I met her working on my album at Motown. She was signed to Motown at the time, so she was very accessible to me at the time because we were label mates, and so we just ended up collaborating on that record, man, and it turned out great. So it was very cool.
Okay. So after Fortunate, you didn't release any new music for a major label. Did you get back into songwriting and production, or did you look
Yes.
at going the independent route?
So I never stopped producing and writing songs for people. That's something that I'll always do, and probably until I die. I've written for lots of people since, and still continuing to. Actually, Lil Jon and I just worked on a record not too long ago. It was something that we were trying to do for the Usher project. I don't know if it's gonna make the record or not, but we worked on it and it was pretty hot. So
Hmm.
we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? Keep your eyes open, eyes and ears open.
Yeah, because I remember with I think it was the Ludacris and Nelly verses, or maybe the Little John and T Pain, where they had the one song with Usher, Little John, and Luda that Usher was holding, and then they played it during the battle, and everybody was like, "We need to hear the full
The
track."
full record.
Yeah,
Yeah. That'll be nice if they did something like that. You know what I mean? I love Usher's music. He's very talented. So one of the greatest really to ever do it, man. You know what I mean? So I would love to be a part of anything he's working on.
right,
I mean, I'm just writing music, man. I write all the time, and I'm really focused on. I have kids that are really talented of my own, so I've been working on music with them and trying to get them off the ground as artists. You know what I mean? So they've got some really great stuff, and I'm not just saying that because we're related. You know,
right,
it's they're very talented, but and they're like today. They got that young sound, and they're very hip hop, and they got a little bit of their dad too. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to pass the torch. As far as the artist thing goes, but it doesn't mean that I'm still not going to make music. I'm going to always do that. I'm going to keep being an artist, still put some music out here and there. I have my fan base. I have people who support what I do, and I'm happy with those people, that support me.
right. So have any of your kids performed "Freak It"?
None of them have ever performed Freak It. I don't know. To them, that's old school. You know what I'm saying? Like they're into all of this new, all this new stuff. My daughter loves Billie Eilish.
Right.
She listens to that crap all day long. And no, no, I didn't
No
say that.
disrespect.
I love Billie Eilish. I like her stuff too. But some of the stuff she listens to, I just can't get into it, man. Some of
Right.
these dudes should be playing. And I have to really like nowadays, man, every record's got cursing on it. So I have to be real careful with my younger kids, because she try to play the stuff in the house. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Let me say all kinds of stuff on that music. I'm like, wait a minute now. I can't. I'm the cool dad, but I can't let that ride. You got to turn that off.
Yeah. I mean,
Put the
especially with
clean version on.
yeah, especially with some of the female rappers out nowadays.
Oh man, yeah. It's like, but they don't really, they don't have clean versions really. It seems like because these kids are listening to music on the internet, man. Like they're on online with it. So all of this stuff is raw.
Yeah. It's hard to
So
police.
yeah, man. So I come in all the time, and I'm like, hey, nah, that's not gonna happen. Turn that off and find a clean version, or this is not gonna work for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So with the stories that you've shared throughout this interview, did you ever sour on the music industry and then pivot into another career outside of music?
I don't think I've ever soured on the music business. I love music, man. But now I will tell you this: I've been a registered nurse for years,
Uh-huh.
so I love taking care of people, man. I like to. I took that job after I kind of took a break. I sort of took a hiatus, man, after I was signed to Motown. It was so crazy everything that was going on. I just wanted to be a normal person and just kind of live a regular life for a moment. And I wanted to do something that would make me humble myself and know how to be there for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a world, man, where everything was revolving around me. And so I wanted to learn, not to mention, man, I found God during that time also. So I wanted to do something that would make me humble myself and at the same time, learn how to serve other people and not just serve myself. And so I still do that. It's not something that I necessarily have to do, but I love to do it. I volunteer all the time. I try to give my time to other people. I go to schools all the time and I volunteer there. I do the career days there all the time. And sometimes I go in there, I don't even tell them about the music. I just go in there as a nurse. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to do, you know what I mean? But I still get lots of royalties. I've written a lot of records. So it's like one of those things where, you know, sometimes when I'm talking to my wife, she's like, why in the hell do you want to do this?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to do this? You know, with everything else you got going on. But I love it, man. I really do. It's really taught me how to be humble and how to love on other people and be there for people on a very direct and personal level, and you know, and not think about all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But I go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say, me and one of my friends who's also a recording artist, we had a debate like earlier this year,
Uh-huh,
between arrogance and humility, and
uh-huh,
which one is the best path to success. But I've always said that humility, you know, you put forth the work and you let your work do the talking, and other people will also speak up for you. You don't need to pat yourself on the back like the wrestler Barry Horowitz used to do, and like brag on yourself on social media all day. Um,
uh-huh.
I kind of sense that you would sway towards the humility side of the argument, because it sounds like you lived a life that is perfect, where you have this fame, but you don't you can go places. You can go to the grocery store, you can go to the
I
mall,
can. I
and
still
no,
have anonymity. You're
yeah,
absolutely right. I feel like that was the blessing in disguise because my record is bigger than my face.
right.
So people know my record like crazy, but they don't know my face necessarily. So I can still have anonymity and do my thing and live my life and not really have to worry about it too much, which I really love. You know what I mean? But now I will speak on what you said, and this might shock you,
Uh-huh.
but I base everything kind of upon my beliefs in the Bible and what I believe about God. And what you said about arrogance and about humility, I believe humility will help get you into heaven and it'll help you be a better person. But honestly, if you want to be successful in the world is not necessarily God's. You know, he controls everything, but he allows the devil to operate. Now,
Hmm.
I don't want to start sounding all preachy and spiritual and all this, you know what I'm saying? But I have to speak from what I know and what I actually believe. Most of the people that I met in the business that were the most successful were arrogant.
Hmm.
And they really like, in order for you to get rich, you have to have a love of money. It's very difficult to get rich and be humble. Now, a lot of people will probably be like, no, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. But it's honestly, in my opinion, I think it's true. And the reason being, business is a different state of mind. When you're talking about money, your focus has to be different. It can't necessarily be, now, some people would tell you it has to be a blend between being, you know, moral and then thinking about business. But the people who are really successful at it, in my opinion, they're more about the bottom line and the dollar. You know what I'm saying? That's just how business works.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, anywhere you've ever worked in your life is like that. If you start messing up at your job tomorrow, they'll replace you in a New York minute
That's true.
very quickly. And they're not going to care about how many kids you got at home, how many bills you got. All they're thinking about is this machine continuing to make money? That machine has to continue to spit out money. And if it doesn't do that, who cares who gets hurt along the way? And when you're talking about the music business, it's worse because you're talking about people destroying lives. They don't care about women having to objectify themselves. If you think about it, most of the women that are successful, they have to objectify themselves. They got to be scantily clad, half naked, They got to be selling sex. They got to be talking about sex. And even with young men, they're talking about drugs. They're talking about murder. They're talking about, sorry about that, motorcycles riding by.
You good?
But you got to think about it, man. It's very difficult to sell a record without talking about these things. And there's a reason for that. So when you talk about humility, can you truly be humble and all you're doing is bragging about how much money you got and how many women you've had sex with and how many guys you'll slap and kill? You feel what I'm saying? So you got to really think about that and break that down, man. And even if you're not in entertainment and you're just talking about business in general, it is very difficult to make a lot of money. Think about it, man. If you got a lot of anything, an abundance of anything, you got to have a love for it. If I got 5,000 pairs of sneakers, I got to have a love for sneakers. You feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if you got a lot of money, like, because I've had lots of money in my life and I gave away most of it. So that's how I know the difference. When you're a loving person and you're a humble person, you're going to help other people. So eventually you're not going to end up with as much. People who have a lot, they don't give as much. Now, some people will say that's not true, but that's my opinion.
Right. See?
Sorry.
No, I'm
I
saying.
went I
Nah,
went
I
deep.
took you there. I took you there. But I love it. I love the conversation.
Yeah.
So you already mentioned that you're
Yeah.
still writing and producing, and your attention is on
Absolutely.
developing your kids in the music industry. What else do you have
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah. So I do some radio shows also. I love doing that, man. Now that's what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
But the show that I do is it's a spiritually based show, but it's a lot of fun to do, man. It's called The Discussion. And so we talk about a lot of biblical things. We talk about that. And it's a fun show because we talk about it in a very conversational way. It's not all, excuse me, serious and, like it would be if you were in a church or something like that. It's conversational so that people can open up and really discuss things. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But with a spiritual twist on it. I love doing that. I like writing. So I'm actually working on a couple of projects where it comes to, like I want to write a book. I've been working on that. And just talking about defining success for yourself. Because in my mind and in my heart, I'm extremely successful. I have a beautiful family. I love my children. My children love me. I get to spend time with them. There are sacrifices that you have to make when you're being successful in the music game. And more often than not, it is your children. It is your family. It's your wife. If you notice, a lot of people who are in the entertainment business, they're divorced. They don't know their kids. Their kids don't know them. So that's one thing that I have that I feel like makes me extremely successful. I'm not into just monetary success. I'm into, how did I affect the lives of my children? What did I teach them? What do they know about life? How well do they know their dad? How many lessons did I teach them? Am I a good husband? So these are the things that I really think about more than how much money I have. How many lives did I touch? How many people did I help along the way? How many times did I give of myself without getting anything in return? So I want to write a book about that. I want to write a book about, you know, being in the entertainment world, but really thinking about success and what success truly is. So these are things that I'm working on, man.
Nice. So
Thank
feel
you.
free to plug your social media. If you have any upcoming shows that you like
All
to
right.
throw
So
out there, the floor is yours.
I'm doing the Choice Awards, Dave's Choice Awards in Detroit. It's a thing that he does. It's like a neighborhood award show in Detroit, and it's really huge here. And so he does it annually. And what he does is he celebrates a lot of people around the city who have done a lot of major things as far as charitable work. Also, people who are in the music business and, you know, who've had hit records, and politicians, teachers, just all walks of life. You know, people who touch the city, basically. Sorry about that. I got some little bugs trying to fly around in my ride. And so and so I'm doing that. That's in September. What is it? September the 28th, I believe it is. If I'm correct, I could be wrong, man. I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
But I'm actually performing also out in Miami right after that at what is this called? The Fall Something Festival. But it's in Pompano Beach, to be exact. So I'm going out there to perform out there very shortly also. I'm also, my son just dropped a new song. It's called Do or Die.
Mm-hmm.
I also dropped a record on one of my nephews. I got two sons that are in music, and I got a nephew and a niece also. And so they all have projects that we're going to be dropping later on this year. So Do or Die is coming right now. My nephew just dropped his record, and he just got 1 million streams, and just got a plaque for that. So we're moving the records along, and his record is called man, it's right on the tip of my tongue right now.
What's his name?
We got Do or Die and Love Making.
Okay.
So
What's his
check
name?
those out. His name is I Am Romeo.
Okay.
My son's name, he goes by GOTB. My niece goes by Tori Blue. And then my other son, who's in the music business, he goes by Sergio. That's his actual name, but that's what he goes by.
Okay, nice. So the bloodline, you know, continues.
Bloodline continues, yeah, man.
Yes, sir. So
the legacy is moving.
Yep. So your socials, you want to plug that real quick?
So you can find me on Instagram at I Am Lathun, and that's Lathun. So you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, all these different little platforms. Check out my catalog. You know, I got a lot of music out there, man, a lot that I've written for a lot of people. If you Google me and look at my discography, you'll see a bunch of music that I've written for all kinds of artists, man, dating way back when to even up to today. So check that out. If you want to support my music, I truly appreciate it. I'll probably be performing Freak It until I leave the earth. I'll be an old man performing that one.
I mean, nothing wrong with that. I mean, I be hearing like Hole in the Wall and a lot of those juke joint jams, and they be like 75 or 80, still getting checks too.
Man.
So there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, man. You got to rock it out. Keep it rocking, sir, until you can't rock no more.
All right. Know? Yeah. So Lathun, I appreciate your time, your patience.
Thank you, man.
The stories, the brutal honesty. Freak It man himself, like he just said. I mean, it's a classic. It's 24 years in the game, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. So I appreciate your time, brother. And hopefully we can chat in person, you know, do it for real.
I hope so, man. I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
So it's been a pleasure, LaTroy, man. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing bigger and better things for you every day.
I appreciate it, man. Peace and blessings to you as well.
All right, peace and blessings, man. God bless you.
All right, and for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.
Thank you for checking us out on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe for more great content. And don't forget to check out our website at GOB Radio Network.com.